Hi, festival students. This is Kevin Olson. I'm excited to be here with you. I know we all like to be in the same room, but I think this is about the next best thing that we can do. And we're finding creative ways to be creative, right? And so hopefully you're enjoying the other videos, and I'm going to add a couple of my own ideas to this as well. The topic that I'm going to be presenting at the actual festival is about arranging and using jazz theory to help with your arrangements. So, what we're going to do today, and we'll only do this for about 5 or 6 minutes, but hopefully it'll give you some ideas of ways that you can put your own arrangements together, and then we can start sharing them. You can put them together this spring, and then when I see you all again, I think over video, we'll be sharing arrangements that you come up with. So we're going to be working on this, spicing up your compositions and arrangements through some jazz theory. So the fun part about arranging is that you get to put a little bit of yourself into it, and knowing some of the tools to that can be really helpful. So I'm going to show you 4 kind of quick and easy ways to take a really basic original tune. You can see this Danny Boy tune right here. You've probably heard it a million times. It goes on, of course, right? So, what interesting things could you do with Danny Boy? Obviously, when we get into more of the workshopping on this, we can play around with different left hand patterns, and we can change some styles, maybe make it swing or Latin or blues or something like that. And we'll get into more of the stylistic things, but I want to think about maybe some of the ways you can change the chords to this. So you can see here we've got extensions, right? So anything that is a triad can always be built above that triad. So changing a simple C major to a C7, you hear that extra note that gives it a little bit of extra color, right? And the nice thing about extensions is you can continue to add up. You can go to ninths, you can go to the 11th. I add a sharp 11 because I don't really love the sound of a plain old F against the E, so I kind of make it an F sharp, so it's got a little bit of that kind of modal sound, and with the A, so you can really kind of jazz up just a simple harmony. There's that F chord. Maybe I added a couple of accidentals in there to make it even more interesting. So that's the first easy step, is just to take your basic triads from the original and build onto that. The second step I'm going to show you is progressions. So one of the most common progressions we see in jazz harmony is the 2-5 progression. In fact, we see it in classical all the time, right? So if we've got that C chord, then what classical and jazz theory teaches us is that 2 chords can precede it really easily. You can have the D minor to the G7 to the C. So in other words, instead of just the plain old C major 7th, you could add those chords to it. You can do it with any chord. So if I had an F chord, maybe 2 chords I could use to precede it would be G minor, C7, and F. There are many other progressions, but 2 I want to show you just on that bottom part of the screen are stepwise progressions. So you could just take a scale and actually build chords on it. Now, it doesn't always work, so you have to decide when you want to stop your scale. For example, C. I don't want to go to F yet because my next chord is F right there. So there are ways that you have to kind of use your ear a little bit to decide how far do you want to take those steps. You can also go chromatic. This gets a little bit spicy, and it might be too much for some of your arrangements, but if you feel like you're just sitting there on a C chord and you don't really have anything else to do, sometimes just a little half-step progression can work. So some are going to work better than others. The D flat doesn't work really great in this one because we have a D in our melody. Not so great. So some of these, in fact, most of these, you have to experiment with and decide what feels and sounds the best to you. There's a great quote by Duke Ellington that said, he said, if it sounds good, it is good, right? And so as you listen to it, just decide, do you like the sound of it? If you don't, try something else. These are lots of options, okay? Okay, the third step, and one of the tools in your toolbox is tonicization. So instead of just having a plain old, just straight from C to F, you could take the dominant chord of that F and stick it in between. It's kind of like the 2-5-1 progression, but it's only the 5 this time. So in this case, I'm going to say, well, I want to go to F, so maybe I'm going to stick the 5 of F, F, G, A, B flat, C, the C chord, and make it a dominant. We call it a tonicization because it makes the F chord feel like the tonic for a second. It sounds like, now we're done, but we're not really, right? F isn't our chord or the key of our piece, but for a second there, that C7 makes us feel like that, right? Let's say we had a C chord going to an A minor. Makes that A feel a little more important by putting the dominant in front of it. I'll show you a few examples of how we can do this in a real piece. And then the final way that we can be thinking of this is through reharmonization. Really, this note E right here, we harmonize it with a C, but there's a lot of chords that have an E in it, right? You see, you have an E major. I didn't even put E minor, but we could start with an E minor. That should say A major. Sorry, I didn't change that. It's A minor is our chord, and I put an A major below it. My fault. I could start on an F. That's a little different, not what we expect. And if we start building on 9ths and 11ths and 13ths, there are a lot of chords that have an E in it. So you could just do a little experimentation and see which ones you like in them as well. So let me show you a quick way of doing this, and then I'm going to give you your homework assignment, okay? Okay, so let me give you a little demonstration showing you some of the things that we've already done, and then I'm going to give you your homework assignment. So here's our original Danny Boy, right? The first step, if you remember, that we were looking at is we can just change all of these to extensions, right? So by simply adding the 7th onto each of these, then I go from being a very kind of classical arrangement to something that's just a little bit more jazzy. There's our E. Okay. Now, for some of these, I don't really love how grumbly that low F chord gets down here. So I could change the voicing a little bit and bring it up so it's not so grumbly down there. Maybe I put the E on the bottom. That kind of thing. So that would be some of the considerations I would work on. Over on this G chord, what if I added a 9th? That's nice. But maybe an A flat would even be cooler. So that's a lot of notes for my left hand to take. So maybe I'm going to give it to my right hand and put a little A flat on there. Sorry, wrong place. A flat. So there's the first step, right? Extension. So start playing around with building extra notes into each of your chords. The second one, if you remember, we had some progressions, right? So one I showed you earlier was that stepwise progression, right? So I could take this and I could just start building up. And as I said before, I'm probably not going to put another F and continue it in this third measure because I have an F coming up here. So here's my stepwise progression. Now again, my hands are clashing, right? So I'm going to probably need to get rid of some of those notes there. Okay, let's do the other stepwise progression. We already decided we didn't really love, but I do like going the opposite direction. And instead of going to a B, I might go to a B flat here. Why? Because I have a D in my right hand, and I think it's going to sound a little better. So here's, dang it, let me try that again. B flat. And then back to C. So instead of saying on that C for the whole time, I have kind of nice, huh? So the other progression we talked about was the 2-5-1 progression, right? So let's go back to this one. Obviously, we don't want to do everything in every piece, so I would kind of start from scratch here. But what would the 2-5-1 to be to F? Well, if F is our pretend 1, right, and we need the 2 and the 5 of that, then the 2 is going to be a G. It's got to be minor. That's what the 2 is. And then here's our 5 of the C, or sorry, of the F, which is a C chord. So again, out of nowhere, I have these B flats. Why? Because I'm pretending that F is my new key coming up. So nice, huh? All sorts of fancy ways just to take a plain old C to an F and do something a little bit original to it. Okay, and then the final thing is that reharmonization, right? So maybe instead of starting with a C chord, maybe I could start with like an A minor chord. So let me just see what that would sound like. I'm going to kind of roll this. So instead of, which we expect, again, this one you'll have to play around with on a lot because some aren't going to sound that good. Not so great, right? An E chord isn't going to sound so great. I don't know about the A either. So you have to do a little bit of hunting and pecking, but find some different chords that will work with what you're doing. Okay, so let me go to our homework assignment. And this is what I'm going to have you guys work on over the next couple of months, okay? So you've got this Twinkle Twinkle Little Star original, and you're going to put an arrangement to it. And I want you to use our tricks of extensions, progressions, tonicizations, and reharmonizations to put some new chords to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Could a stepwise progression work? Kind of nice, huh? Could maybe that 2-5-1. So 2 is that G minor we talked about, C to F. So your job is going to be to come up with the coolest harmonic arrangement to this. Even though first and third lines are exactly the same in the original, they probably should be in your cool arrangement, right? I bet you can come up with lots of really fun things. So I'm excited to see what you guys do. And feel free to email me through the festival website, and I'd be happy to give you feedback, ideas, anything that you're not figuring out. I hope you guys have a great couple of months, and I hope to see you in the festival in early summer. Have a great 2021, and we will see you soon. Bye.